Let's get going. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on what is the future of trade shows in our industry. I welcome our panelists. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to contribute to this. We have, out of Quebec, we have Jonathan Fortin with, he's partner and president of Casitas Footwear. Karen Lamoth is Ontario Sales Manager for Kids and Adults with Geox Canada, and Karen is a former OSTA board member. When I first started, Karen was on the board. We have Alan McFarland, Kodiak Holdings Group, Western based, is sales executive, and our only retailer on our panel is David Anderson from David Williams Shoes, and he's also Ontario based. So we just want to get into it now because I'm not going to do any housekeeping. I think by now everyone knows how Zoom works. So if you do have a question, just please feel free to ask it in the Q&A or the chat box, and we'll get to it when we can. So guys, let's just start with a very basic question. I want to know what you all liked about shows. Let's start with Jonathan.
Well, there's two things that really stuck out on that one. It was, first of all, is really the only way personally, and I think for a lot of people to meet or to have a nice one-on-one contact with a good number of retailers and industry colleagues. It's not, for me personally, I don't have the time to get out on the road as my reps do to meet with the clients as much. So for me, that was always a great opportunity to be with the clients. And the second thing was really, it gives you, just walking around the show, you can get a real quick feel for the general pulse on the industry.
Yeah. Karen?
I think coming from a more junior position, for me, shows to have like the open shows were amazing because I would have the management team, I would have the marketing team. So if there's any questions or, every now and then there's a stumper, that you have that support to answer the questions on the spot once, and also to share the magic of the show and to share the team, like just to kind of celebrate your brand's DNA, who you are, and to just kind of perform at what you're best at and just enjoy.
Yeah. Alan?
Very similar to what Jonathan mentioned, but one aspect that really works for me is you have the opportunity to find new accounts, because if the show has 100 attendees and I have 20 appointments, there's 80 people there that they may be carrying a different product or a different line of product than I'm selling, but there's always a couple that come walking by and they walk in your booth and you can engage them in conversation. You find out where they're from, and it's hard to do that. Cold calls on the road are hard. You have to do a lot of research to find out where people are. You have to do some research online if they have a website to figure out what kind of a retailer they are. But you can have this conversation face to face that you don't feel like you're intruding in their space, and it's a fantastic opportunity. I look at some shows and I look back at the show, and one of the metrics I'll use is how many new faces did I meet?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. David, our lone retailer.
Well, certainly, I look forward to the shows every year. This is the major buying show, and I get excited about seeing all the suppliers under one roof. And from a cost-effective point of view, it is much more cost-effective for me to go and see all the suppliers, all the fashion suppliers that I deal with, to make an intelligent choice on a collection of footwear, and I'm also in apparel. So I found it, for the 3-4 day show, it was the only way that I wanted to buy. And like I was mentioning before we got on air, is that, geez, when you go through those doors and you smell the leather and you smell the apparel, and like, it's intoxicating to get in there. And from a retailer standpoint that loves shows, it's a buying show. I'm prepared to put pen to paper. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about being there. I've never got that feeling by being in a personal office or on a Zoom. So yeah, I applaud the arena for the forum of having a big trade show.
Yeah, there's always a buzz. There should be a buzz. As a show organizer, I always get the shivers after show move in, and then I get in there at 7 o'clock the next morning and it's all done and the carpet is laid down. It's a buzz,
Oh yeah.
right? So pre-pandemic, how many shows would you attend and what did you primarily use them for? Were they more for marketing, sales, networking, buying, browsing in terms of David? And have your needs changed? So do you want to start, David, on that one? How many shows did you attend and have your needs changed?
Well, the shows that I attended were 3 in total, 2 major shows and 1 regional show. And as far as the purpose of the show is concerned, I certainly mentioned seeing all of the suppliers on one roof, but it was both an overview as well. It was appointment based. I mean, I wrote at the show. The other nice thing about it, it wasn't necessarily cost to conversion. It was networking. It was seeing new accounts that I have never seen before, new product, and some of the people from across the country. It was nice to see someone in Nova Scotia and out in Calgary come together. We go to dinner. We shoot things back and forth, some ideas that I never thought about. So I miss that about the show more so just than the economics of it. And that's what
as a retailer, would you, what shows, would you go to Vegas, for example? Would you
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The Magic Show, where I have another question that's going to come about, I'm sure, in your field, Michelle, and that is joining shows from a cost-effective point of view and driving retail attendance.
Yeah.
That would be my first suggestion, but that's why I love the show. It was fun.
Yeah, we're working on that. Alan, how about you? How many shows did you attend in a season and have your needs changed from marketing, networking, sales?
Well, primarily I use shows was selling. Marketing for me would always happen more in season when the product had shipped to the retailer, was to try and support them, or in the months leading up to them. But at the show, it was to get the new product booked for the next season, to give my company the opportunity to make it. I have a large geographic area that I cover, which is BC, Alberta, the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. And so I have 4 shows that I would attend pre-pandemic. There were, just this past season, there would have been 2 in January and 2 in February. And I was booked for all 4 again this year. I was really excited to get back to being client facing. We unfortunately had to cancel the 2 in January because of the Omicron surge. But I did get out to the 2 in February, and it was fantastic to get back out there. And I believe that they're regional shows, and so they really serve my needs. Is that everyone who shows up, pretty much, 99% of the people that attend are local retailers, and I'll probably continue on right back with that. My biggest fear I have is the retailer going to come back?
Yeah. Jonathan? Same question. How many shows? How have your needs changed?
Personally, I would attend 3 to 4 per season. And that would basically be a Toronto show, Drummondville show, and then MICAM. It's always important for me.
Wow.
We used to have quite a few clients from Quebec that would attend the MICAM show. All my vendors were there, so that was great for relationship building. As a company, it's probably around 5 or 6 shows. I know there's 2 shows in Quebec. There's now the AFA show, maybe the Thread show, the Vancouver show, and Edmonton. So we have our reps attend the shows there. And similar to Alan, definitely we're there to write business, and networking. From a marketing point of view, we were never really there to kind of promote high level marketing or anything like that.
Karen?
Well, I-
Geox.
Yeah, so pre-pandemic, I would do 2 hotel shows. So I would do the London show and the Ottawa show, and those were booking shows. I mean, it was boom, 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 writing shows, booked appointments. And then, of course, we would do the Toronto show. Now, going forward, I probably won't be doing the hotel shows, and that's simply because of supply chain, because it's changed. I may not have my samples. I may not have my costs nailed down. Delivery windows are changing. So that's been the biggest thing, just to be flexible and being able to work on a dime, like to spin. And that's where shows will become more marketing based, more like David was saying, more emotional, the smell of leather, the touch and the feel.
Yeah, the aesthetics of the show, the romance, as I think before we got on, I think David was referring to the romance of the show.
It's all about romance, aren't I?
Well,
I
and
got-
the other thing is, I also have to justify what I can do at a show that I can't do on a Zooms or Teams meeting.
Yes,
Will be measured.
yes, yeah, yes, because when I talked to reps over the past, I want to say 6 months or so, I understand, and we were talking about this before we went on, I understand that reps have been able to figure it out and have their season without the marketing spend. That being said, where do you think shows are going in the future? How important are regional shows now? Are they more important than an open space show? Are both needed? Because we have lots of regional shows in this country, and then AFA is, we draw from across the country. But Jonathan, where are you on that?
Listen, similar to what Karen said in terms of supply chain and the buying cycle has completely changed for us. We had started a little bit going down this train just before COVID, but it really exploded for us during COVID. And as of late, it's not getting any better. Supply chain from sourcing to production, but most importantly, ocean freight and congestion at the ports. It's a huge, huge problem. So for us, we've advanced our buying cycle quite in a big way, to be honest. And rather than do the typical European 2 collections every year and have 5 weeks to do all your selling, and you don't sleep for 5 weeks, and it's crazy. We've advanced and we do 4 collections a year now. So probably 70% of our business is done on first delivery of spring, which we'll be working. Let's say, I think we work June 1st to July 20th for January 15th delivery. So we're well in advance of all the shows. And at the shows, it might turn out to be a bit more seeing clients that we can't see either virtually or in our showrooms or on the road. So seeing those little clients, but also maybe more marketing, because we'll be showing novelty of the newness that's coming in Europe, but it won't be to the extent of what it used to be, because most of our business will be done before the shows even start. So
Yeah.
there's a lot for us to consider there.
Mm-hmm. And booking deadlines. Yes.
Everything's coming. We have the samples are later than ever, and the deadlines are earlier than ever. So like example, for this fall 22 season, we got most of our samples 2 weeks after the Quebec shows were done, and we had 3 weeks before the deadlines. So I'm kind of thanking my lucky stars that we had done 70-80% of our business by January 15th before the shows. Yeah.
Alan, where are you on that?
Well, I'm kind of caught in the middle because as a sales rep on the road, I get from my supplier side, I get the delivery windows. I get this, our samples came on time this year, which was fantastic. But the booking deadlines are moving up and up and up, and a bunch of the shows aren't changing. They're holding their position. And so what ended up happening this year is I actually was out at my last show and was pretty much right on top of my last deadline. And I have a feeling next year the deadline will be much earlier, and that show has no interest in changing at the moment. So it becomes, does that show become relevant to me now? And I've seen, I had some of my colleagues out there from other brands. They were at the show, but they were finished. They'd already, their deadlines had been a month before. They were more there to shake hands. And I understand, you know, face to face, especially now at the sort of nearing the end, hopefully, of this pandemic, where we will be regularly face to face. It was important for the reps to get out there and see people. But it's there's a major shift happening and it's a conflict between when the retailer would like their show, when it, you know, it works in their cycle, when my supplier needs the orders, and they're getting farther and farther apart now.
David, what do you have to say about that from a retailer perspective? Thank you for mentioning that, Alan, because that's, yeah.
Well, certainly I empathize with supply chains and certainly the suppliers' situation. I mean, all of us have had to change our business models in some respect. I know from a retail standpoint, as I've said before, and I can speak for a good number of smaller retailers, we want that arena whereby we can, you know, see a whole bunch of suppliers. But I hope that can happen with that of the present situation with supply chains and deadlines, because I mean, all I can say is that this year it was so fragmented and so actually more anxious for me as a buyer, going all over the place, different days, different people had different deadlines. So it's difficult to kind of make a collection of footwear when or apparel when you've got this deadline at the end of February as opposed to the 1st of April, because I'm the type of guy as a buyer that I want to see everything first. And that's tough to do. And I feel for the suppliers in this particular case. But as a fashion retailer, I still want to be able to see as much of the product before I make that decision. I mean, there's some retailers out there that you know, they've cut their supply base down so much that with 5 or 6 suppliers, you know, if they sold the same product, the same pair of black pants and the same pair of black shoes, there's no need to really have a show. You can do this by Zoom. But when it comes to fashion, I come back to, we need a place and a forum to feel and touch. And it's just not one supplier this week and another supplier the next week. It's like certainly very stressful. I hope that answers.
It does. Do you go to regional shows? Do you attend the regional shows?
I do, but they're more definitely more appointment based, which I'm fine with. But I find it somewhat obligatory. I have to admit, you know, sometimes the old way for me in just combing the entire show for a couple days to see what everyone's got and then formulate some kind of plan to go back and do it, as opposed to having an appointment and saying, okay, well, thanks very much. I've taken a look. I'll get back to you. Then I have to make another appointment to go and see them. So if this is the new world as a result of certainly no trade shows, then that's what I'll have to do, but don't like it.
But as a retailer, your preference is an open space, an experience, if you will, to be able to feel it and be in that space.
I feel that appointment based sometimes is obligatory, and maybe that's just me. Let's face it. I mean, as a retailer, I would love to have customers coming in my door and saying, "Looker or a buyer." You know, if you're a looker, stay outside. You know, I want someone to put the money down.
Yeah.
But you can't. I mean, obviously the lookers do turn into buyers. And I think that's part of the show that I don't think I would ever want to change.
Yeah.
But
Karen, so how do you plan on using shows in the future? Like,
I think for me now, it will be technology based. A lot of it will be. It will build on the Zoom. It will be for launches and fashion shows and showing add-ons to the shoes and to introduce the team also too, right? Like this is our marketing plan. This is where we are. This is where we're planning on going. You know, this is what's going on in Italy right now. At Geox, we definitely have an exciting story to tell. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that, you know, this is where we're here today. This is where we're here tomorrow. This is where we'll be in the future. So that's shows will be an experience. There'll be an emotion. When we launch our new B2B site, we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about our new technologies. We'll have the touch, the feel. They'll be fun. There'll be a party in your pocket.
interesting. Interesting. Jonathan?
I gotta admit, I'd love to be in Karen's boat and be able to get there. I feel like for us, we're always, maybe we're a victim of our sampling and our short window, you know what I mean? So I feel like the shows for us is probably still going to be more all about seeing clients, you know, that one opportunity to actually work with the client, if it's appointment or a walk-in, to actually work the collections. But I do feel like we toyed around with the idea this year of trying to do have a dedicated space within our booth for training on our B2B site and things like that as well. We didn't get there, to be honest. We were, like example, the Drummondville show, we were, you know, back-to-back appointments for 2.5 days. You know, just like the second half of the last day, it's always quiet, but like every other show. But you know, in a perfect world, I would love to see those large open concept shows have an extra day, perhaps, for either dedicated to a marketing day or a looking day, no appointments or something like that. That could be where everybody gets on board and everybody can walk around and have that experience, but then not take away from the appointments that the salespeople really need.
That's an interesting perspective, an additional day to focus on something other than sales. It's interesting. I wonder if there's other ways to achieve that within the show. So for brands. Yeah. Ellen, excuse me, how about you? Like, how are you using shows going forward in the same way? Are you gonna do a hybrid? Are you gonna continue? You have a huge territory.
Yes, I do. I get David's point on appointments. You know, from my end of it, I love having appointments just because when I'm on my way to the show, I have a sense whether I'm going to be busy or not. And as I said, the biggest fear I have is anyone going to show up? But I always run it with a mix of appointments and walk-ins. You know, there are some brands I know that they'll be slammed for 8 or 9 hours during the show where they'll have an appointment every single hour. But I don't generally run that way. I'll have, you know, first or second day will be my busiest day. Usually by the third day of a show, it's very quiet. And you know, that's an opportunity for retailers like David to walk through the show. You know, it's at the end of the show. Maybe you want to do that. Actually, we prefer that on the first day, but it's that opportunity where you know, you can swing a dead cat in a show on the third day and not hit anybody. So I don't really know how it's going to operate yet. I spent much of January trying to figure out how to operate a show again, and you know, setting up my February shows, and we're in a different world now. I see Karen's point of view with Zoom, how much that's in our life now. I mean, you think about if we had the pandemic 20 years ago, we would all been hooped because there was no way to run our businesses other than over an old school analog digital or analog cell phone. So Zoom is here to stay. It's just a matter of how am I going to balance the two. I have a couple of accounts that you know, I get the impression they feel that Zoom is more a more efficient way of running meetings. And so they'll probably stay on Zoom, but I'm still a little bit old school. I like to get face to face. So I'm still going to be, you know, pushing forward on all 4 of my regional shows. My retailers love regional shows. We get really good attendance at all of them based on the fact they don't have to travel very far. And I have 2 in Alberta and 2 in BC. So you can get pretty covered off well as a retailer without having to go for too far for too long with too much money.
Yeah. We just had something come up in the chat.
I think it was about touching product, which again,
Yeah.
in Zoom was very difficult because I would run a Zoom meeting, then I would have to ship some samples off to that person who what they liked. And while those samples were gone for 5 or 6 days before they came back, I only have 1 set of samples. So it was limiting on how much, you think about it, you could really send samples off to 1, client a week was sort of how it worked.
So this wasn't on the questions that I sent to you guys ahead of time, but we did touch on this before we went on about the whole virtual trade show. I just want our listeners, our viewers, to see your thoughts on the whole virtual trade show. Not individual Zoom meetings, but did any of you as suppliers or David as a retailer participate in a virtual trade show? No.
None.
Tori? No.
No.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting.
Limited by many, any in the US as well. We had lots of between virtual MeCam or virtual, was it Magic? There's quite a few, but we never took part. They weren't
Yeah.
free by any means, but they weren't as expensive as a regular show. But the amount of work that would have had to go in to set those up for no idea if there was going to be any return on investment. I guess that was pretty scary. So I don't know of anybody personally that actually participated in those.
And if you have a B2B sales site like you have and Geox has, right? I guess the virtual trade show, I mean, that was a huge thing at the beginning of the pandemic, was all these technology companies. I was getting so many emails from these technology companies who wanted to sell us on virtual trade shows. We tried it in August to do a hybrid. I think, Karen, were you on that? Did you do the virtual trade show in August 21?
We did, and it was a big learning, talking about flexibility and technology, and there was no return on it.
No.
But we were open to trying new things, and I
Yes.
think that's something post-COVID we've learned. You got to really think things through. You got to do a cost analysis. So this was kind of, we just dipped our toe in the water, and the retail, the buyers spoke. They didn't want it.
No. Okay, that makes, yeah. I'm glad to hear that. This is a question for just the wholesalers. I'll just come back to you, David.
No problem.
So marketing budgets have clearly changed. And I mean, I have to ask, as we produce shows, where is it going to limit the amount of shows you can do? Where does that fit in now? And the budgets have obviously decreased for shows. So is it part of your marketing mix? Like, as you go forward, I know supply chain is an issue. I know it's going to take some time. Hopefully that'll get back on track in the next couple of years, because it could take that long. But how are you working shows into your, or are you working shows into your marketing budgets going forward? Alan.
Well, again, I focus primarily on regional shows. And so I organize it from my end. I get some help from my marketing department with some graphics and other things. And we do some, we'll post ads in the show book. But really I'm a solo show out here. So I will sign up for a show. I will pack up my stuff. I will go, I will set up, I will host, and I will pack down. And my company has said to me that they actually love the concept of regional shows because they are very cost effective. They're very cheap for the company. They don't bring out 100 people, and very limited travel. They've let me know on a corporate side that they're going to be very cautious about stepping into major national shows, because they are very expensive. And so they may still go, but their footprint might be a bit smaller.
Yes.
My footprint at a regional show is essentially a 10 by 20 booth with a bunch of tables all rent, and I bring my own, company tablecloths, and it's pretty cost effective.
And it's in an open space. It's not hotel rooms.
I have one show out of my 4 that is a hotel room show. And normally I don't like those types of shows, but the industry I'm in, they stuck all of us in the same category on the same floor. So it actually works really well. That we all, all the clients that come by generally buy for a number of us, and everyone's quite comfortable with it. You do limit the ability to pick up that new account, which I really like, because they're more nervous to walk into a room that they don't know what they're walking into, and they don't, whereas at open concept, they can walk by and see it from the hallway. So they've always, even that show, they've looked at finding spaces where they could do a cost-effective open concept, but they just haven't found it yet.
So I'm just going to go to David on that for a second. So if it's a hotel room show, as a retailer, is obviously it's by appointment, but is it awkward from a retailer perspective?
If you're going to be dealing, if you're going to be dealing with this particular supplier, no, it's not awkward at all. If you're on a overview mission, it is very awkward. Where you can walk into a room, as Alan points out, it's a lot less inhibiting for me looking at all product to have it in an open forum, as opposed to going and making appointments in each room and saying, thanks, taking a look, appreciate it, I'll get back to you. So it's not as comforting as doing it that way. But if you're prepared as a retailer, you're going to be doing business with a particular individual, and you don't necessarily need to see anything else to make that decision, then appointment base is great. And regional shows with appointments, whether it be open forum or hotel rooms, are fine. I was going to mention one thing, Michelle, just in concert with as far as budgets for shows. I don't know how your viewers are going to receive this, but also remember that as suppliers, there's some suppliers out there that have deemed it in their wisdom that maybe the retail brick and mortar model is less of a concern than their online site, dealing directly with the very client that I have. I was going to say that, right? And things have changed. I'm not judge and jury with that comment. It's just that, if they deem their online world going directly to our customer is more of an uphill climb, then they might just take a back seat to the retail side of it. And hence it's not worth them going into shows.
Yeah.
And applying a budget for any major shows.
Yeah. Direct to consumer is from my perspective, is a scary thing with brands going more and more direct, and wholesalers. Like it just,
That has changed the face of retail for this guy who's been in it for 42 years. Where my very supplier, rightly or wrongly, during COVID or otherwise, yet to kind of navigate the whole fallout of that, but it has changed the way I do retail. Staying with more of, I'm getting off topic here to your question, but staying more to people like Jonathan and people who have different goods that aren't going direct.
Yes, that's interesting.
Anyway, sorry, aside there, guys.
No, I'm really glad you brought that up. Karen, with you, with Geox and budgets and direct to consumer, and how is all that changing the shape of how you do your business?
Well, the retail industry has changed over 5 years. And 5 years is not a long time, and it will continue to change very, very quickly. Now, I'm lucky enough to have a company culture where Rick and Monty really support marketing. You know, they get it. They have buy-in, and they excite and motivate us. So for us, it's about company culture. We're about innovative comfort and style. So there's a whole story to tell, but not every brand has, you know, there's some utility brands that don't have a story. Maybe they just have a simple purpose. So I think shows need to be flexible. And Michelle, it puts you in a tough position, because how do you accommodate all of us and allow us to tell our stories and show our technology, or just have a booking show, boom, 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 boom. And that's where I think it's our job as reps to have that communication with our marketing teams. And you know, there's some people attending the shows that don't have a marketing team even. So
Yes.
it's all about being flexible and adapting, I think.
Yes. Yes. I mean, you're representing a brand, right?
And a story.
Yes, and a story, and you tell a story. Jonathan, you have multiple, you're a multi-brand rep. So where's your take on? marketing tools?
You know, COVID, obviously we learned a lot from COVID. Everybody had to adapt, right? That's no secret. Speaking for our company, and I know others as well on the wholesale side. Well, of course, 2020 was an absolute disaster. The amount of cancellations that we all incurred, and bad debt. But 2021, believe it or not, despite not even being close to pre-COVID top line revenue, many of us had close to record years on our bottom line. And that was straight because we had no choice. We had to work virtual, and we cut out the biggest piece of the expense, which was travel and shows. Now, fast forward to today, it's pretty clear that people like David and many others, not all, but many others, cannot sustain working virtually. It doesn't work for them. They need to touch and feel, and they will gravitate towards the vendors that they can actually see and feel the product. So we're going to find, speaking for ourselves, we have to find that balance. Can we go back to the spend levels that we did before? No way. With this inflation being all-time highs, and only going to get worse with the price of oil and with the components on outsoles, that's just getting worse and worse. And ocean freight with 300 to 400% increase in the last 12 months, 18 months, and forget air freight. That's just beyond ridiculous from Asia or Europe. So we have to, it's not only shows and travel that is being looked at. Every single piece of the budget needs to be looked at, or else prices will get to levels where consumers can't afford to buy shoes anymore. Like, it's going to be, our industry will suffer greatly. So we all have to find ways to try to cap that hit on price increases.
Yeah.
Well said, sir.
I don't know if that was off topic, but oh man.
No, I'm glad you guys are bringing all of these things up. As I mentioned, it's more of a discussion than sticking to the questions, because it's all very important. So that being said, I might be opening up a whole Pandora's box here, but this question isn't really on here, but I want to ask it. So, and I'm going to start with David, and it's about show timing. So in terms of booking deadlines, timing, and midweek shows versus over the weekend shows. So at AFA, we're always grappling with show dates, and do we stick to our old pattern of Sunday to Tuesday? And it's always pretty much a 50-50 split. So I really want to ask David that question specifically to you. As a retailer, is midweek or over the weekend, like as we've been doing for years, Sunday to Tuesday, which is preferable for you from a retailer perspective?
Well, I maintain it has to, I would stay with the Sunday through Tuesday. I know that in concert with what Jonathan was saying, you know, even retailers are changing their hours, their staff levels. Things have gone from like a 10 to 6 to 11 to 5, 11 to 4, and maybe from a Tuesday to a Saturday. So no nights, that kind of thing. So, and I know there's pressures. If you're the only one, you're the only retailer, as a lot of the small boutiques are now not going back with staff members to take over their store while they're at shows. But I still maintain a Sunday to a Tuesday. I mean, yours truly is not open until Tuesday, but I find the buying process so important twice a year that I would close my store for a Tuesday. I'm off Sunday and Monday. So I still maintain that Sunday through Tuesday is ideal. I mean, I'd even like to see it another, you know, Sunday to Wednesday, but I realize that, you know, you could shoot a cannon through some of those latter days, you know, and but I still maintain that if you do join forces with other shows to make it a real impact of an event, 4 days, yeah, it would take me 4 days to get through it. And Sunday to a Tuesday or Sunday to a Wednesday is ideal. Midweek isn't.
Yeah, yeah,
For me.
yeah, we are really very much trying to bring in apparel and more accessories into our current mix, because we do understand it's better for the retailer and it's more cost effective for the exhibitor to not have to attend so many different shows. Alan, what about you in terms of booking deadlines and show timing? And I understand you do regional shows, but your booking deadlines clearly have changed.
Yeah, as I mentioned, booking deadlines have changed, but two of the shows I attend, there's numerous different categories that come into that show. There's footwear, there's clothing, there's hard goods, and all of them have different deadlines and pressures. And that's sort of within the trade association, one of the ones I'm a member of. It's the biggest fight right now is what do we do? The show has been moved over the past 15 years from late February all the way to early January. And now the question is, do we go before Christmas? And there are some exhibitors who say, well, my deadlines are done by early January. And then there are others who say, I don't even have samples by early January. So there's a real tug of war going on right now as to where this will end up. My company, we've actually, they just announced for spring 23, when we start our selling season this fall, we've moved our sales meeting up by at least 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks now. So we would have our sales meeting sort of mid-November. I'd have, samples within a week or two of that, hopefully. We're looking at sort of mid to end October now to have our sales meeting,
Wow.
which is great for me. It'll add almost a month to my ability to travel and sees a few retailers that I usually would see before Christmas. Now it gives me a little more flexibility than trying to jam it in there a couple of weeks before Christmas. But I don't know. I don't see the shows being able to move before Christmas. Retailers generally, what I've heard from them is they want to get through the Christmas rush to see what they have left over.
Interesting. Yeah. Karen, show timing, deadlines, booking deadlines.
Well, for me, it's unique because the bulk of my business is kids. So my deadlines are very important, especially for back to school. So, and that's why I'm talking about marketing being so important and the experience of the show, because most of my shoe business is written before the shows.
Mhm.
But I'm a firm believer in the shows. I think you can only do so much on a Zoom meeting, right?
Yeah. But if the shows are well beyond booking deadlines, the problem is, to Alan's point, it's all across the map. I mean, even
Exactly.
within our own industry, even within footwear, it's all
Oh, yeah.
across the map.
And
Jonathan,
we do
sorry.
adults, so adults can work at the show, and that's the exciting part about that too.
Yes. Yes. That makes sense. Jonathan, booking deadlines? Show timing?
Deadlines have probably gone moved up by 2 weeks for us this past season. And I think that's going to stick. And it's purely to hedge against supply chain disruptions. So from that point of view, we have no choice. I'm kind of like stuck in the middle because a lot of our supplies are all based in Spain, and 80% of their global business is in Europe, and they're still on the same cycle. So for them, they work much later. Like we were 90% done our bookings here, and Italy and Greece were just starting their first appointments. So, what I mean, we're kind of stuck in the middle. So for us, it's like I said, we're gonna probably continue to look to get 70-80% of our business done before the shows even start. So we're gonna have to find that type of balance, like to Karen's point, where it's selling but also doing more. Either it's technology training, marketing, who knows at this point. We have a list this long of ideas, but we haven't formalized anything yet.
It's interesting because, we all know that the last day of the show, you could often play bowling in there and you wouldn't knock anybody down. But it's still an important time because I know that a lot of exhibitors do business on that last day, but it's making me think that we need to enhance that ability to do some marketing, to have a space for people to show to tell the brand stories, to Karen's point earlier at the show. So finally, it looks like we might have lost David. I hope he can get back on. What can we do with the show to enhance it for you? Booking deadlines aside and everything that we've talked about, we know all of the big issues out there, wars. We don't know what the future holds. But for our show, what do you see that we could do, and how we can enhance the experience for the exhibitor and the retailer? I know it's not on the questions and I'm throwing you guys that question, but Karen, you touched on a major piece when you talked about it's about the marketing.
And I'm so glad what we've dug into that. Really, I think we can strategize and come up with ideas, but at the end of the day, what do the retailers want? What do the retailers need? We're the hinge between the brands and the retailers. So what is it that they want? What is it that they need? And I mean, they're coming out of a really hard time. And like we've mentioned, even staffing. David brought up staffing, hours. So what can we offer them to make the show run their business the most efficiently? And it's the $1 million question.
Yes, we need to ask the retailers. That's a good answer. And it's just, we need to ask the retailers. Surveys are hit and miss, but we need to ask retailers what they need. Not what they want, but what do they really need at this stage? All right. I don't think we're going to get David back, unfortunately. Thank you all so much for participating in this. We really appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions or anything that they would like to add of the attendees on the call? Thank you, guys. Very insightful. And I really appreciate it from AFA Canada, and registration is open for August. You can just go to afa.com, afacanada.com. Thanks, guys, and hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.